So although this is a very comfortable suit, I would not advise you to wear it on the office. It's a pain in the ass to go to the toilet. But there can be anything fitting in here, so that's good. Like a clicker. Okay, so welcome to my talk about what I've learned about improving being a Sensei. So my name is Braam. I'm a developer for over 15 years, and I'm saying that for a couple of years now. But I'm also practicing karate for more than 30 years. And during that time, I found out actually that there was a lot of overlaps in both lives. So it was, of course, more than sports for me, karate, and profession also became more than only profession to me, and I saw a lot of overlaps. Like, I like being in a dojo. And I build feature. I never write bugs, but I occasionally break things. So I'm founder and director of Open Value Amsterdam. You can find me on Twitter by the handle. And luckily, I'm also walking around here, so you can ask me questions if you want later. So at some point, and let me make my notes a bit bigger, because otherwise, well, this sense I cannot read it. Yeah, so at some point, people refer to you as a Sensei. And I really like Japanese kanji style, so that's the signs. And Sensei has two concepts, sen and sai, where sen means earlier or ahead. And sai is a bit more difficult to explain, but it's the concept of a living thing that learns. So putting those two concepts together is something like one who's been born before, or one who came before. But most of you probably know it as a teacher, right? So a sensei is a word used for a teacher. But in Japan, in the old Japan, it's also used as a title, for example, a lawyer or a accountant, right? It's it represents some sort of seniority. Like, some people might see a sensei in this more senior person in your team, right? And some of you see Stack Overflow as a sensei because they learn how to copy-paste. So there are many, many things I learned while being a sensei about teaching. And with teaching, I don't not only meaning like standing for a group of people, but I'm saying like any way of sharing your knowledge to a group of people with the purpose of improving them. And I found out that teaching is extremely hard, because not only you need to know a lot about a topic, but you also need to learn how to teach, and which is very difficult. You can try it, you will fail in the beginning. I did, actually. And if you think teaching is hard, then meet long-term teaching. With long-term teaching, I mean getting somebody from knowledge level A to knowledge level B, because that involves so much more. It costs you a lot of devotion and energy, and I found out that the more energy I put into, the more I get out of it. And you need to come prepared. Well, that's obvious, of course. And although it costs you a lot of effort, it's worth it. Like, there's no more beautiful thing than sharing your knowledge and help others to improve. And remember, an expert doesn't make you a good teacher, right? So you need to step up. And one of the most important things there's respect. And of course, respect goes both ways, right? And a sensei is also always an apprentice. So while being a sensei, you always learn a lot. And as I learned a lot from my sensei, I probably also learned just as much from every pupil in the group. And just as a senior developer or like a more senior person in your team, it's all the same, right? You're learning others, but you also learn from more junior people. And although I got caught by teaching by my sensei, and I teach, of course, the way he teaches because I'm, well, led by example, he gave me this book, and he actually told me, like, respect is the base of a safe environment to improve. And without a safe environment to improve, there is no improvement. And he gave me this book, which is from Alice Emder. I could really recommend it. It's about old, wise, mature artists. It's about power and how they use it. And this book actually made me think, because this book is not only about martial artists, but it's also about humans. And it's about you and me and our relationships. It's actually how hierarchy works in our society. And it's also about the abuse of power. Because, of course, on the light side of the Sensei, there's the enabler, right? The more senior person in the team that tries to improve others. And improving the ones surrounding him is one that should be led by example. It's an inspiration to others, but he can make mistakes. But there's also a dark side from a Sensei. It's a balance of power and the balance between relationships between people. It's an abuse of power. And it actually opened up my mind because the things that for me looked very harmful are kind of evil also. I think we all know the hashtag #MeToo discussions, right? So it is there and you should be aware of it. And especially as a more senior person, you should be aware that there is a difference in the groups and there is a balance difference, and you should be aware of that and don't make the mistakes as many other people did. And therein comes also the dojo. And dojo, again, kanji, 2 signs. Do, which means the way, and jo, the place. So this is the place of the way. It is a place to learn. It's a place to improve. It is a place where you show respect. It's a place where everybody feels safe. And there are many, many differences, but everybody's equal. And this has to do with a safe environment to improve, like I said a couple of slides ago. And in a team, it should be just the same, right? And it's the senseis in your team that needs to make sure that your environment is safe. Because only in a safe environment, people can improve. Which comes me to improving, or actually a different way of improving. So I was a very traditional teacher, and I actually sought along for a lot of pictures, and this was the only picture I found me giving a lesson. So that was kind of weird, but you know, right? The old Japanese teachers didn't want any pictures because that's just a snapshot of how you're doing, and if you're making a move and it's not completely correct, then you get punished by everybody, right? So the old sensei, well, maybe this is not so weird. So okay, anyway, I was a very traditional teacher. And with traditional teaching or traditional improving, I mean, like you observe, you categorize what's happening, you're going to categorize what's going on, and you will start improving, right? So, and you do this cycle over and over and over again. And always you start improving the worst thing, right? So from bottom up. We call it the code rack technique. It's not an official name, but we used to use it as in our education systems also at karate. And we use it because we are focusing on the things that can be improved the most. So we start from the bottom of the code rack and we hang them higher and we keep on improving the things that are the worst. And then my sensei, Johan van der Hoofdakker here, came to me and he said, like, we're doing it all wrong. And imagine, this is my sensei that's been teaching people for over 40 years, right? So he came to me, I think we're doing it all wrong. I've been doing it wrong for 40 years now. And we together went on a journey. And we became an apprentice again, right? And we came on a journey where we also came across a couple of things. So there are a couple of things in common here. Anybody? Orange, yes, they're orange, yeah. Winners, yes, they're all winners, actually. You can see the soccer team, under 21, a couple of Olympics medals, they all won. And they have another thing in common, because they have actually coaches that are doing things a bit different. Or not a bit different, a lot of different. So you see Foppe de Haan, Henk Gemser, Mark Lammers, and Robin Vergalen. Sorry, if this is like only Dutch, but okay, I hope that's okay to everybody. Actually, they were focusing on the things that went good. So they're not focusing on the things that were not as good, but they were focusing on the things that went really well. And they started improving the good things. And they left all the things that were not as good. And they called it positive coaching, or positive teaching, or positive feedback and positive improving. And I think you might have heard about it already, because it's everywhere. And positive coaching has a couple of rules. And one of those rules is that you should observe the positive and start improving these positive things. So focus on the positive things in your group or in your trainees. And also one of the other rules is that you should be task-oriented instead of result-oriented. So tell them what they need to do and don't tell them what the result will be. And value the effort instead of the result. So value effort above result. And create a culture where it's okay to fail. And if you give feedback, like anyway, negative feedback or positive feedback, make it constructive. So for me and myself, I use always the if-then. So I say like, if you do this, then that will improve, right? And this is probably a hard one for lots of you, but give it compliments. It won't hurt you. And another one is ask open questions, because if you ask open questions, you could listen. And listening is very important while improving others. And all of this you have to mean, right? So you can give compliments where you're not agreeing with, but then they don't work, right? And while being on this journey together with my sensei, I found out that this is everywhere. And it came across in my life a couple of years after a lot. So we created a competition for kids that we focus on the effort instead of the result. I now see it also working in the school of my kids. A lot of big sports federations have caught it up, like soccer team, the volleyball teams, hockey. They even instruct their volunteers with the same thing. And more professional sportsmen are also using this way of working. So, and it works because they have success. So how about software development then, right? How should this work in software development? Well, actually, precisely the same thing, right? So you should observe the positive, be task-oriented, value effort, okay to fail culture, etc. And if, for example, if you look at observe and focus on what's positive, most of the times in the retro, we are focusing on things that are not so well, right? We always focus on the things that are not as good, and we shift aside. I always see this happening, like, oh, these are the good things, okay, nice. We put them away, let's focus on the things that are bad, right? But if there are any dependencies, you need to get them out of the way as soon as possible, but also focus on the things that are good, because I'm convinced that if you focus on the things that are good, the other things will come. Another thing is with task-oriented instead of result. I think also Paul just mentioned about user stories. Put in the user stories what you want to do, right? What's the task of doing, not what you want to achieve with doing it. But focus on what's the task, what do you want to, and what do you want to achieve with it is something that will follow up. And everybody that has kids, or everybody that got a present from kids, value the effort over the result, right? Probably they spend a lot of time in it, but I don't think anybody is doing on purpose scoring a bad result, right? So if this junior guy is picking up a story that's extremely hard and he tries, then that's a good thing, right? If the result is not so good, then we should help him. It's not about the result; it's about the effort. And with this, we should create a culture where it's okay to fail, right? Because otherwise, the junior would not pick up a story that's too hard for him. So it is okay to fail, right? And our jobs it is to keep these failures have minimal effect. So make sure that if anybody fails, then it wouldn't be a big effect. So minimize the risks and try to give constructive feedback, right? So everybody that's like with Paul saying with saying with pull requests, like also give your constructive feedback. So if there are no unit tests, don't blame the guy like, hey, there are no unit tests. But let's say like, hey, if you add unit tests, then the quality of our code would be better. And give compliments. It's okay to give compliments in a pull request as well, right? You can also tell people that they're doing a great job. And it won't hurt you, it can only improve others. And ask open questions, because again, only with open questions you can listen to people, and by listening to people you can help them. I mean it, because that's the most important thing. So this was just 60 minutes. I did the talk in also a bit longer, so I tried to squeeze everything in. Didn't work out, but I left some things out. But also a thing that I want to give away with this is like, look at other areas, because there are lots of professional guys and people that are like coaches that are continuously trying to improve their team, are specialized in improving, right? So sometimes we could just learn a bit more from others. And while being at your work tomorrow, I hope there's a Sensei in you as well, and you could help others improving as well as the others will improve you. End of my talk. Domo arigato, which means in Japanese, many thanks.